Hey everyone, this is our lesson on human impact and the ecology of populations. So, just as a refresher, remember that ecology is the study of the interactions of organisms with their environment. So, it's how things live. And population growth, as we looked at in a previous lesson, populations grow when birth rate exceeds the mortality rate. So, birth rate exceeds death rate. And we looked at these a little bit earlier, but these are called age distribution or age structure diagrams. And these show the growth patterns in populations grouped into categories. So we've got pre reproductive, so children, adolescents, reproductive, young adults, post reproductive, older adults. And the horizontal axis is the number of individuals, whereas this is just the age groups. So in developed countries, it tends to be a much more stable graph where we've got our bars are all almost about the same size, especially in the middle. And less developed or undeveloped countries, or developing countries, will have much higher birth rates than death rates. As you can tell, it looks more like a pyramid. So humans are a part of the Earth's ecosystem, and our activities, whether we mean to or not, alter the balance of the ecosystems. So the first way we can look at this is global warming. So the use of machinery by humans seems to be increasing the carbon dioxide levels in the air, and CO2 prevents heat from escaping, causing slight worldwide temperature increases. And sometimes that can lead to different issues, melting of the ice caps. Here you can see that it actually causes coral bleaching, which means that the coral is going to die so that fish can't live there. All kinds of different things because it's not allowing the heat that we're producing to leave the atmosphere. Another huge factor for human impact is deforestation, and this is caused by such a high demand of wood products. It could be for building houses, it could be for increasing farmland space, making roads, anything like that. You guys know we've had highways being built and updated all through this place, and they were in areas where trees were once located. And deforestation, the biggest issue here that we see is it's going to cause habitat fragmentation, which means plants and animals are forced to be confined into areas as opposed to being able to spread out. A lot of times when new roads are being built, there tends to be a lot more accidents where you're hitting animals because they are not used to the fact that it's not forest anymore. So they just run out in the road and then get hit by people driving. So this has actually been studied and researched as a fragmentation solution where you actually will leave I don't want to say natural bridge, but a bridge that is forested, basically. So the animals could get from one side to the other and still actually be on land where you build underneath on the roadway. Another impact is ozone depletion, and this is caused by chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. This used to be really bad. These are released by like refrigerants, things like that, which is why when you put stuff in landfills, it can be really damaging to the ozone. Also used to be in hairsprays back in the 80s. So when people use hairspray a lot, it definitely did not help the ozone. So these CFCs will escape into the atmosphere, and they actually react with ozone, O3, and they break it down. And that means they're removing that atmospheric layer that is to protect us from UV radiation. So since that has a hole in it, UV radiation will penetrate the atmosphere and cause harm to many organisms like skin cancer for us. But I think of most recent research, the hole is not getting any bigger. I don't know if it's actually fixing itself, but I know it's not getting any bigger. Another impact is fishing activities. So we do, based on food products, there is a demand for fish and shellfish. And then commercial fishing can be harmful to the environment in many ways. You might catch things that are not meant to be caught, like sea turtles, seals, things like that, sharks, all those things. You leave netting in the water and it catches on animals that are not meant to be caught. Lots of really big issues here. Invasive species is another issue, or exotic species. So these are introduced by people accidentally or intentionally. And this can cause problems if there are no natural enemies present for these species. So in this picture, as you can tell, this is called a cane toad, and it was introduced in Australia to control cane beetles, which destroy sugarcane crops. Another one, this is a big one, is kudzu, which is like the growing ivy that you see like on the sides of buildings and stuff. So this was introduced in the late 1800s to control erosion in the southeast. I don't like that. In Japan and other parts of Asia. But there's no natural predators or parasites in the US, which means it just overtakes everything. And kudzu can actually grow up to 1 foot per day, and that means it will literally just encapsulate whatever it's on. Another issue is exotic pet trade. So this is the capture and sale of wild animals from their natural environment, exotic locations for us. Wealthy people will do this. Collectors will do this. Oh. Excuse me. And then these animals are removed from their habitats, but it causes an imbalance in the ecosystem, because if it is a predator, you get rid of the predator, the prey is going to kind of go crazy in terms of amount. So the importance of the environment is biodiversity, and this is the variety of life in the world in that particular ecosystem. And this is because organisms do depend on one another. So certain ones that are, autotrophs may be food to some of the consumers. And then those consumers are food to other consumers. Well, when those consumers die, they help the plants to grow again. So interfering with one organism will have a ripple effect to others in that habitat. So the threats to biodiversity are habitat loss and destruction. So that's like the deforestation, alteration to the ecosystem composition, introduction of exotic species, overexploitation, pollution and contamination, and then global climate change. So in terms of species that kind of dominate the population pie graph, basically, we have 10 to 30 million insect species, 5 to 10 million bacteria, 1.5 million fungi, and around 1 million mites. And that's total number of species. And something else to make sure we understand here are our natural resources. So we do have non-renewable, which are like the fossil fuels, the things you burn because you can't reuse them once they're burnt. And then you do have renewable. So we have plants, animals, water, and wind. So in Europe a lot, they actually will use those giant hydroelectric windmills and let the wind and water kind of build up energy to send off to like cities. So even renewable resources can run out though. So you do have to be prepared for that when you mess up the environment of those renewable resources. So renewable energy sources include solar power, wind power, geothermal energy, hydropower, and ocean currents. So now that we've listed through all of these, I want you to think about how do humans contribute to environmental problems. First one, pollution. So we pollute everything. We make land, water, air, and other parts of the environment dirty or contaminated and unsafe or unsuitable for use. And when that be the case, we're harming the environment more than helping it in any way. There are different types of pollution. So agriculture, you've got DDT, fertilizers, and animal wastes, which to some extent, some of these can be helpful, but they also can be harmful when used in max amounts. For homes, we've got really strong cleaning agents, and then industry, toxic gases and wastes, as well as acid rain, based on the smoke and stuff that gets back in the environment. We also have herbicides and pesticides. So we know these are sprayed without knowing any long-term consequences. These are just sprayed to keep the plants growing and get rid of weeds and bugs. But DDT here is used to combat malaria, typhus, and other insect-borne diseases by eliminating the insects themselves. It's claimed to be a miracle. It has no effect on humans, but it can build up in the environment, which will lead to biological magnification. So it builds up in the environment, and then it gets passed through animal to animal on the food chain of the environment. So some impacts on human health from pesticide pollution. So it can affect and damage the nervous system, cause liver damage your DNA, and a variety of cancers, cause reproductive and endocrine damage, and it can also cause acutely toxic or chronic effects. So bioaccumulation with DDT. So this accumulated to such levels in top predators that it started having lethal effects and endangered many species of birds, including the bald eagle. So, for instance, you might get DDT in the water at a very, very small amount. Well, then it's going to get into the phytoplankton, the little teeny tiny bacteria and animals that live in the water. Well, then it's going to go into the small fish, and then it's going to go into the large fish, and that's building up as we go. It's becoming more and more as we go, more and more concentrated as we go. Well, then the bird that eats the large fish is going to get the biggest amount of DDT in its system because of all of it that's been eaten throughout this food chain. And our current global situation, so now it takes the Earth 1 year and 4 months to regenerate what it uses in a year. So that's not good. And one way we try to fix this as humans is going green. So ecologically, this is using non-toxic, recycled, environmentally friendly products. We try to be efficient and use the least amount of energy and other resources as possible so that we can put out the least amount of waste. And then we try to be healthy and generate as little visual noise and physical pollution as possible.